Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, welcome to our next and today's gathering for talking about and discussing 29th letter, second station from Risale Nur collection, inshallah. We'll continue talking about that as some of the points that we've been discussing for the couple of weeks as well. And I'll go ahead and get started with the ayah, inshallah, and then we will go ahead and continue. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam ajma'in. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. It was the month of Ramadan in which the Quran was bestowed from on high as a guidance unto men and self-evident proof of that guidance, and as the standard to discern true from false. And I will just try to summarize what I wasn't here last week, but I just listened to discussion. Basically, that the fourth point and fifth point we discussed, and then with the panelists. And then the last part was that we were talking about how fragile our body is, and then we can understand during Ramadan as well. And then recognizing our impotence. And also there was a big discussion, well, not big discussion, but negligence destroy his heart or our heart, and why and how we can, what the reason that is really destroying our power. Today, inshallah, we have Colin Abi from the UK and then Mustafa Abi from the US. We will continue discussing the 6 point. And last week that we read the 6 point, but we didn't have a chance to discuss because there was no time. I'll continue the reading again one more time, and then I will turn the floor to our panelists. And feel free to discuss and use the chat box as well if you have any questions and answers or comments, inshallah. 6 point. The most important episodes of divine revelation took place during the month of Ramadan, and so one of the many wise purposes behind the Ramadan fast pertains to the revelation of the all-wise Quran. It is as follows. Since the all-wise Quran was revealed in the month of Ramadan, to ignore the demands of the lower soul by abstaining from the food and drink means that we are able to respond to that heavenly address in the best possible way. Fasting then allows us to attain a state of holiness. It allows us to read and listen to the Quran as though it has just been revealed, or as though it is being revealed at this very moment as we read it. It allows us to listen to the Quran as though we are hearing it from the lips of God's noble messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or from the angel Jibreel, or indeed from the pre-eternal speaker himself. It allows us to act as the Quran's interpreter, to communicate it to others, and to some extent to demonstrate through our actions the wisdom behind the Quran's revelation. Indeed, it is as though in Ramadan, the whole world of Islam is transformed into a mosque, a place of prostration. In every corner of the mosque, millions of those who have memorized the Quran cause the dwellers on earth to hear that heavenly message. Each Ramadan reflects in the mosque most luminous way the verse شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. It proves beyond all doubt that Ramadan is the month of Quran. Some members of the waste congregation listen to the Quran reciters with respect, while others recite it for themselves. To pander the base desire while situated in a sacred mosque, and to abandon the state of holiness through eating and drinking is to invite the disgust of the rest of the congregation. Similarly, Those who oppose this practice of fasting in the month of Ramadan call upon themselves the disgust of the whole world of Islam. Okay, this is the sixth point, inshallah. What I'll do is that I will start turn the floors to our panelists, and inshallah that we will start the discussing. And I'll start with the Kolinabi, and then because at the end of the last week you said, Kolinabi, there's an interesting discussion for the sixth point. Now, if you are ready, please just go ahead, and we'd like to hear your reflections on that.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah. I do remember saying last week there's something very interesting coming up. Um, but I'm a, in about 20 minutes I'll be breaking my fast, and at the moment I'm really my head is all over the place, so please forgive me. What
Problem.
comes to me at the moment is that Ramadan is the month of abstaining. And yet we abstain from food and drink and various other things, various other activities. And we have one prescription from Allah who says that this is the month of the Quran. Um, how I understand it is not just because Ramadan was the month in which the first revelation occurred, although it's highly symbolic. Um, when we abstain, we need to abstain also when we're reading the Quran from seeing it through the lens of our own understanding necessarily, or our own desires, our own theories, you know. Lots of people pick up the Quran and as soon as they read a verse, either they understand it literally, and then they dismiss it because how can this be literal? Or they understand it as a metaphor, which is equally, I think, erroneous. Because symbols are not metaphors, and the Quranic is Quranic Arabic. The Quranic language is symbolic language. The language of the Book of the Creation is highly symbolic. Um, and so we are supposed to put aside um, all our preconceptions, all our prejudices, all our assumptions, and to be open and empty. You know, just as our mouth is open, our stomach is empty. Um, we have to be open and empty and receptive to the truths of the Quran as they are, and not as we want them to be. And maybe I'm not articulating this properly. Um, but Ya Quddus, you know, he is holy. In other words, there is no flaw or deficit um, or lack in his beautiful names. You know, in his essence. And so we're moving away really from anything that is to do with the products of one's own understanding, which is outside of revelation. What I'm trying to say is that we don't see it anymore as words on paper. We don't historicize it. Um, we look at the Quran as though it's being actually revealed, as Ustad says in this passage, as though it's being revealed to us at this very moment. So when we read something about, for example, yes, this is very good here, you know, ignoring the demands of the lower soul by abstaining from food and drink, but also by abstaining from baseless conjecture and theory that often we try to project onto the Quran, or reading it as though it's a history book. Um, because we need to attain this state of being open to the Quran because it is addressing us right at this minute. So if we're reading, for example, the story of Musa and Fir'aun, we have to really try to understand what it is about your own life. You know, imagine you open the Quran and there is the story of Musa and Fir'aun. And you have to imagine, why am I being given these signs now? Just as when you look out the window, you may see a bird flying by, and you have to think, you know, I can't pass by this and say that it's meaningless. I have to give it a meaning because it has a meaning. I have to try to understand its meaning because the bird has flown by the window. No one else in my house has seen it. I don't know whether anyone else has seen it, but I've seen it, and that's what matters. So, how do I interpret the bird? The bird is talking to me now. Um, the very fact that the bird passed my window is Allah, He's saying something to me right at this moment. And also, when I'm reading about Musa and Pharaoh, he's also saying something to me. And it is relevant to me. We shouldn't just say, well, this happened in Egypt thousands and thousands of years ago. Okay, it's a pretty story. It's very interesting. You can draw some conclusions from it, but what's it got to do with me? I never met Pharaoh. I never met Musa. What's it saying? It's actually, as I see it, it's saying to me, who are you today? Are you Musa today, or are you Pharaoh, or are you a little bit in between? You know, uh, Musa and Pharaoh, they are, I'm not saying they're not literal characters, of course they are. But if we read them as literal characters and not as being symbolic of meaning, not as having a meaning, which is relevant to me now, because the historical Musa and the historical Pharaoh are irrelevant to me from one perspective. I can only know about the pattern of behavior and the pattern of divine uh, creation and the divine modeling and shaping of events that is exemplified by the Musa and Pharaoh story. And I think if we can get rid of all our assumptions and preconceptions and habits of Quran reading in this month, I think we can make a connection with the meaning of the Quran that we are not able to make outside of the month because we're in a state of um, Qudusiyya in a sense, reflecting Allah's Qudusiyya. That's what comes to mind at the moment. I don't know
Thank you
whether
so
that was
much.
what I was thinking about last week, but maybe it was.
That's all right. Thanks so much, Nabi. Yeah, and then it was great and learning your reflections, and inshallah. Um, Instead of me just summarizing, I'll just turn the floor on to Mustafa Abi, and then we can just look at that. There's a hand raising. So, Mustafa Abi, what is your reflection
Yeah,
at this point? Yeah, go
uh,
ahead, please.
Assalamu alaikum. So yeah, thanks, Khun Nabi, for the great introduction, because it is indeed right, the quality of our interaction with the Quran is definitely more important than just quantity, right? Like there is and that is what Ustad here is getting our attention into, and is that there is usual a bit of a the default understanding of, okay, we will need to read more Quran this month, which is okay, which is fine, which is actually great that we are increasing our quantity of our reading of the Quran. But what Ustad is actually getting our attention here is to the quality of our interaction, right? Quality of our engagement with the Quran needs to elevate in this month, especially, right, as Nabi mentioned, you know, getting the lessons directly for ourselves is definitely um, one way of doing it, right? And even I think here, the I guess in the next page there was this um, the state that we need to be in order to get the Quran's message more clearly, right? Like as if we're hearing from the Rasulullah's lips, alayhi salatu wasalam, or from Jibril, like is it's being revealed at that very moment from Jibril to Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, or even to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself to Jibril, right? These are very holy states, right? I mean, it's hard to really imagine yourselves there, but this also means, as Konabi pointed out, is that these are the states where we are actually getting it as the direct addressee of the Quran, right? Like at this point, you need to get to that state that this is speaking to me, this is speaking directly to me, because I am hearing directly the message myself. And being in that state, I think being in the, of course, like the connection, I guess I would like to add that a little bit, is that the connection with the fasting is that it does puts us into that state, and I guess it is mentioned in the next page or so, that it is, I think, with that having that state, maybe in the next page, like we need to abandon our lower self a little bit, or best desires of ourself, right here, and then that state of holiness, right? Um, that like the name of Al Quddus, as Qunab said, but also the name of As Samad, right? Is that like we don't need to think about these, we don't need to think about food or drink or these things are nafs desires, so that we can just focus our attention to Quran. And again, as Qunab mentioned, it is not necessarily just the quantity of our interaction or engagement, it's also the quality of our engagement, how we are dealing, how we are engaging with it, how we are dealing with the not only the reading the text of the Quran, but also reading the tafsirs that are around it, trying to understand it, trying to contextualize it for our own life, because at the end of the day, it is not some book with an historical thing, as Konam just mentioned, right? I mean, anything in the world, nothing in the world is random, right? Everything has a purpose. Since we believe in a creator who controls everything, Rabbul Alameen, and he creates everything, every creature, and all the actions around all the creatures. And everything has a message, everything is meaningful, everything is purposeful. As that bird example that Konab just gave, right? Like that bird that passing is not random. In the same way, me hearing that specific verse in that specific context, at that specific time, is not random. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He meant it. He meant us to hear that specific verse at that specific moment to get a specific message. So I think our duty then is to be in that state of receiving, right? Being able to receive that, not being busy with other things, but focusing mainly on, okay, what is this message to me? What does this ayah telling me at this very moment? Because it has to have a meaning, because it is the, again, word of creator of all worlds, who has infinite knowledge, and He is creator of us as well. So we should believe in that. We should believe that it is talking to me, it is talking to my specific situation. I do have a lesson to take out of this specific verse, because it's not random, right? That, being in the Taraweeh, hearing that thing, and then our attention just going into some specific verse, that cannot be random, that has a purpose, and we should again just focus on trying to get that message and see what it means for us and what it tells us. I think, yeah, that's about what I can mm, what I can remember or at this point, inshallah.
Thank you so much, Mustafa Abi. That's great, really. And what I'll do is that, inshallah, before there's hands that raised, and then can we just there was a one hand raised, and I was just wondering that who the person is. That's why.
I saw your hand raise, Hikmet,
Did
actually.
I? I
Yeah,
just
it's
tried to change it.
oh, I
Well,
see.
I'm using the. I was just using phone. That's why. Paulina,
Ah,
you have 20 minutes, but we have more minutes, so I make mistake. I can make mistake easily.
I forgot you're in Arizona, where it's probably hot there as well.
It is really hard. 90. So I'll read that there is one chat box discussion that there were somebody put it here. And know, O beloved friend, when you are present during the recitation of the Noble Quran, you may listen to it in various ways. One, imagine yourself in the era of the Prophet. Transport your heart into imagination back to that time to listen to noble messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, as he ascends the pulpit of the prophethood, and conveys the verses of the Quran to all of humanity. Listen as if the words are issuing directly from his blessed mouth. The second one is the imagine the Archangel Jebrail, yeah, or imagine the scene of revelation where the Jibreel alayhi salam is conveying the message to Prophet Muhammad, peace, blessing upon him. Listen as if they sacred exchange between the two. The third one is that imagine the divine speech or enter a state of the imagination where you listen to pre-eternal speaker, God, addressing the noble messenger, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, at the stage of the Kaaba Hussein, the high spiritual proximity from behind 70,000 wheels. Okay, I think that this is really clearly summarizing, and then we, uh, Alhamdulillah, all the panelists is clearly explain everything. And then what really attracts me is this the one paragraph that I was saying, the whole wild world is just transformed into a mosque. I mean, beautiful. Think about it when we are reciting the Quran here, every part of the world, they are reciting or they're listening and the Quran, which is that the Ustad says, it proves beyond all doubt that Ramadan is the month of the Quran. Alhamdulillah. If there is no other addition or in reflections or insights, I will continue the reading 7th point, inshallah. The 7th point, one of the many wise purposes behind the practice of the fasting in Ramadan concerns the trade in good deeds and the earning of spiritual profit, which is one of the reasons why humankind was placed on earth. The reward for righteous actions in the month of Ramadan is 1,000 times more than in other months of the year. The reward of righteous actions for righteous actions in the month of Ramadan is 1,000 times more than in another months of the year. According to prophetic tradition, each word of the all-wise Quran carries 10 merits when recited and will bear 10 fruits in paradise. During Ramadan, however, each word yields not 10 but 1,000 fruits and verses such as the Ayatul Kursi. Such as the Ayatul Kursi yield thousands of merits for each word. If they are recited on a Friday in Ramadan, the yield is even greater, and on the night of the power, each word carries 30,000 merits. Indeed, the all-wise Quran, each word of which yields 30,000 eternal fruits, is like a luminous tree of Tuba, which will earn Ramadan countless millions of eternal fruits for those who believe. Consider then this sacred eternal trade and the profits to be had from it. Consider it and think of the infinite loss suffered by those who don't appreciate the true value of those words. I think that I will stop here, and then I'd like to listen before Kolinabi leaves the 7th point, inshallah. Kolinabi,
I
the
won't
floor
leave.
is
I'll
yours.
break my fast and continue. It's okay. It's fine. Um, did you want me to say something about the seventh point?
Please. Yeah, please.
Um, this issue of trade, obviously we understand why trade is used in Quran. Allah will give us a beautiful loan and He will repay us, and all of these things. I used to be quite dismissive of economic terms in the Quran because it sounded as though, it was very utilitarian, very commercial. But I mean, it's absolutely suitable. The language is absolutely suitable to the time that it was revealed. But now we have to not be too concerned about this trade because, in the way that we understand it today, because it does really become like a commercial transaction. I'll do this and Allah will give me this. Maybe I'm sort of traducing that position a little bit. Maybe people are not quite as overt as that. But sometimes it seems that we are a little bit obsessed with transactions. But it's not about that at all. If we go on to the next slide, where Ustad is talking about the different merits which accrue to us when we read particular verses or when we read particular words even. Again, it's very easy to be dismissive about these things. But in actual fact, cause and effect, if we believe so heavily, that when we eat, we're eating in order for our body to flourish, there are ways of eating, right? We can say that eating is a ritual, because our life is full of rituals. Even for unbelievers, they have a fiqh. They have a system of rules of do's and don'ts, which suit their own disposition. And so when we eat, it's a ritual. We have to do it. It's something that we even ritualize. It's very, very symbolic, but it can be done in the right way and it can be done in the wrong way. So if you eat lots of wholesome food, which is not too processed, and you have a good balance of nutrients, then you are attempting all the right causes, inshallah, for your body to flourish. But if you eat junk food, if you eat rubbish, if you eat from McDonald's every day, then you're still, you're performing the ritual of eating, but you're performing it in the wrong way. So when we see passages like this, which tell us that, for example, during Ramadan, every word has not 10 merits or 10 fruits, but 1,000 fruits, then for us to simply pick up the Quran and then read the word without understanding it particularly, then that's not going to yield any fruit really. Not 10, and definitely not 1,000. So again, it's going back to what we were saying before about emptying oneself and making oneself open to the real meanings of the Quran, and not to, how can I say, approach it with this like transactional attitude, which tells us that if I do this, then that will happen. We have to get rid of that idea as well. It's like the hadith which tells us that someone who can who can recite all of the names of Allah will go to Jannah. Well, yes, it's true, but there is reciting and there is reciting, right? There is just reading without understanding the meaning, and then there is actually reading to drink in the meaning and to see how it affects you and to see how it's relevant to you and see what impact it has on you and why it's significant, and to take that forward in the rest of your, the things that you do and the things that you say, the way you live your life. So we have to be very careful here, I think, about this numerical value that's put on the merits of certain words and certain verses. They're all fine, they're all true, but we have to really be careful that we don't take them in a sort of transactional, superficial way. That's all.
Thank you so much, Paulina. Okay, that was great, and that we need to understand that how we need to take or perceive that some of the understanding of the merits or just the fruits, inshallah. Okay, Mustafa abi, I would like to hear your insights as well.
Said Abi has his hand up, but yeah, I can chime maybe just a little bit. Yeah, it is, of course, it might, especially since we just talked about the meaning and, the Quran talking to us and stuff, this transactional piece might appear a bit off, but at the same time, we can and we should probably use all the tools possible in our disposal to convince our nafs, right? Our soul needs incentives, right? It is the human nature to a bit. And then there are definitely, if we actually know the meanings and everything, that's definitely great. But at the end of the day, to our nafs, we need certain tools to incentivize it and towards good behavior, right? It's a bit of a creature of habit, and then in order to establish good habits, we need to incentivize good habits, and Ramadan being having these incentives from the perspective of gaining more rewards and everything. I think it also provides an incentive. Again, we may not necessarily do it for the case, which is not harmful as far as I believe, as far as I know. The doing it for the reward in the hereafter, since it looks to the hereafter, right? Since it's not a worldly benefit, it still is valid, but at the same time, it might not be the purest form. But regardless, I think to convince our nafs, these are definitely useful tools, because at the end of the day, Quran mentions for the Laylatul Qadr, خير من ألف شهر, right? Like it is better than 1,000 months. From that perspective, I think that there is value. There's value in this, but at the same time, I think of this as, in the worldly life, we do this a lot, right? Like there are periods of time where there are in world trading, let's say, for example, when we need to buy something, we can say, okay, there's a deal coming up. Let's do that, or there are certain times, right? Such as like here, there's like this Black Friday, for example, and things of that sort, where people are incentivized to even buy things that they don't need to buy. Why? Because it's a good deal, right? Like they can spend much less on something that they can get value out of. So there is that in human nature, even in the worldly trades. So from that perspective, I think Quran and Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala provides that incentive for us as well to engage with the Quran. And this is not just a 20% price reduction, right? This is actually thousands and thousands of more times, right? Like we have cases here, like in the US, where like on the Black Friday, people go into the lines in front of the stores maybe for hours. Some of them like camping out in the front of the stores for like hours until it open, so that they can get one of the limited deals in the opening hours of the store. So, so this could help us stay awake at Ramadan nights, because if we know that it actually is that valuable, it definitely helps us convince our lower soul, in a sense, to do that, because it is a deal that we cannot really miss. It is a deal, and in the hadith as well, I think, right, there are things like such as like woe to the person who goes through a Ramadan and is not forgiven, right? That kind of implies that we need to know the value of Ramadan, and then we should definitely um, take advantage of this good trading opportunity, in a sense.
Great, thank you so much, Mustafa. Yeah, that's and I was always hearing that one of the examples that, for instance, you have a store and then one night that you're expecting 10 buses and then no one wants to go home. I mean, if you have the store owner, that you have to be there, that you don't even want to sleep because there's the 10 different customers is coming. So this is not maybe a classical thing, but if this month is that giving that all kinds of edger and fruits and yeah, that luminous tree, like luminous tree of tuba, that you cannot miss that there. Alhamdulillah. Okay, Said Abi, that you have now you raised
Oh,
hands and
yes, hello.
go ahead, please.
Yes, welcome. It's, do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, okay. So just to make sure. I think just a little maybe clarification, and I also can say a few maybe sentences about it. This is, I think, the original text in here, according to prophetic tradition, each word of the All-Wise Quran carries 10 merits. In original text, it says harf, each, I don't know, it's any corresponding is in English, I'm not sure. It's not the each word, but the each letter is corresponding to 10 merits. That's my point. I don't know. Maybe you can just check and verify it. And
Yeah,
secondly,
thanks.
yeah, this I think like the brother said, it's this months, this weeks is in the Ramadan we are in. I think I see that Allah likes to forgives us and helps us actually in hereafter. But this is like a teacher. Imagine a teacher give exam to students and wants to help the students and taking paper and looking at them, but give extra credit. But if there should be something on the paper, I think these months for Allah wants to see like whatever we do, whatever we can in this holy month, just multiplying, just everything. So at least we have something in our Ajr record. So then Allah will use them as evidence, concrete, something like, okay, now you made it. Because so, yeah, this is incentive and opportunities for us. If we even just a little steps and trying, maybe inshallah it's going to help us in the hereafter. And those are the I see these days and opportunities. Just reciting one surah, at least one page a day, it's gonna multiply. So will inshallah, and shows Allah's rahmah and forgiveness, to try to forgive and helps us out. This I see this as an opportunities for us and take advantage, inshallah. And that's it. And thank you. Yeah, so just
Thank
just regarding the just letter wording things, I don't know. Maybe it's corresponding to similar meaning. I am not sure.
Yeah, I'll ask Colin Abi. Thank you so much, Said Abi. Colin Abi, if you
Yes.
are still here, would you mind just addressing that part,
Yeah,
please?
I'm very
First.
thankful to Brother Said for noticing that. I'm not sure whether this edition is is the final version, or whether this was changed afterwards, but I'll definitely check. And if it was letter and not word, then it will be changed, inshallah. Um, I'd just like to say, in response to what both Said and Mustafa said, I really don't underestimate the importance of incentive. It's very, very important. And of course, what the Quran talks to all of us as a collective. It doesn't particularize. So there would be lots of people who will get a lot even from actually opening the Quran and looking at the word, looking at the letter. They will get something from it if their intention is, to do it fi sabilillah and in accordance with what they have been told to do. Then we don't know. We're not in the hearts of people and their intention. I'm just saying that we need to be careful. That's all. And this is for us, or this is for those people who um, understand what we should be doing with the Quran, but maybe we don't do it because we're lazy, we're thoughtless, we're heedless. We have to be careful that we're not taking the easy road and just reading. So I'm not talking about
Yeah.
people who understand, well, Allah asks me, He says that He will give me this if I do this. And if He does it sincerely, that's not a problem at all. And incentives very important. I mean, we have incentives to avoid hell and to strive for heaven. But we have to be careful that it doesn't just become transactional. That was my
Yeah.
only concern.
Thank you, Colin Abi. And then Ustad also says that, for instance, that for Jeff Shan, when you read it, like for expecting something, sometimes that you might not get the all the edge that you are expecting, or you were going to gain, and that's where the ikhlas comes from, inshallah. That just do whatever that you were supposed to do, or you were commanded by Allah. All right, inshallah. That what I'll do is that I'll read that the some part that it was shared. So one of them is iPhone 101. We are told that angels do not eat and drink like humans. Their sole purpose is worship, and they're always partaking in the glorification of their Creator. Similarly, it appears that when we also refrain from food and water, we become more attuned to the glorification of the cosmos become a conscious recipient of the revelation, and have the opportunity to consciously join this glorification. Yeah, that's great. Great. And there's one question type of thing. I guess, can we understand it in this way? Yeah, this is maybe a question. The reward, in other words, the benefit I receive from reciting and living each word of Quran during the month, which is known for the when the human consciousness is the first guided by the Quran, is increased a thousandfold, as perhaps when it not the month of the Quran in my life, I may say that the words without living their realities, whereas the month of Ramadan symbolically represents the times of my life when my recitation is perfectly aligned with my actions, inshallah. And therefore, when I leave the Quran, I benefit and receive many more fruits, a profitable trait, immediately in my life than when I may only repeat it, which doesn't bear such fruits. Okay, that's another way that iPhone 101 said, brother or sister said that the understanding that benefits as well.
I think
We
that's a
can,
great understanding. Sorry.
yeah, that's, well, go ahead,
Yeah, it's a
Cornabi.
great understand. No, I think it's a great understanding. I mean,
Yeah,
it speaks for itself that, the Quran was revealed in the month of Ramadan, and it changed a whole paradigm, if you wish.
yeah,
The universe suddenly became intelligible through the light of the revelation. Iqra bismi rabbik. The prophet was told to read the creation in the names of his Lord. So this is a kind of waking up of human consciousness, on a general level. And so, as individuals during Ramadan, we are supposed to, in a sense, be reflecting that kind of first moment of understanding, you
yeah,
know, that revelation which came to the Prophet. The revelation also comes to us, through his Risala, through the words of the Quran. Um, so we are supposed to, we are aligning ourselves in a sense, because when he received it, he was in Qara Hira. He was involved already in a practice which we can say is a kind of riyazat, is a kind of ascetic practice. So he was open, and he was empty and open to receiving this. So if we make ourselves the same during this month, I think where the brother or sister is saying that, in when it's not the month of Quran, when it's not the month of Ramadan, or that there is not that consciousness, then I may say the words without actually understanding their true meaning and without living their realities. So that doesn't. I mean, that can happen in Ramadan if we're not aligned, and it can happen outside when we're not aligned. But if we're aligned with it, if we are really fasting in the way that we should fast, then there will be more. It will be more fruitful. It will be much more fruitful than outside of that state when we are just reading the surface reading and not going into it too deeply. So I mean, the person who's written this in the chat has articulated it much better than I've just tried to replicate what they've said. But it's a very, very, very nice understanding.
yeah, great. Thank you so much, Cornabi. And then also that iPhone 101. And I will continue at least to read the one paragraph as well, or two paragraphs to finish this, and then we can just continue, inshallah, if we cannot finish it this week. In one sense, then the month of Ramadan is like a market designed for the trade of the hereafter. It is a vast tract of fertile land where the crops of the hereafter may be sown. For the growth and flourishing of actions, Ramadan is akin to the showers of spring. It is a brilliant holy festival at which mankind displays its worshipfulness in the face of the sovereignty of the God's lordship. And it is because it is so mankind has been ordered to practice fasting and self-denial. Mankind has been told to abstain rather than surrender to the animalistic desires of its lower self, it is lost, and then it is lost, and its desires for the trivial and the futile. I think I'm pronouncing right. By rising above its own animality and by ignoring the demands that the world makes of it, the lower self may approach an angelic state and then thus be able to engage with the trade of the hereafter. Through fasting, one approaches to the state of the hereafter, the state of a spirit appearing in bodily form. In that state, each human being becomes a mirror, reflecting all of the names of the Quran, one whom all beings need, but who is himself above all needs. Indeed, month of the Ramadan itself acquires a kind of permanence and eternity within the short life, within this brief, fleeting world. For a single Ramadan has the ability to produce fruits equal to a lifetime lasting 80 years. The fact that according to the Quran, the Laylatul Qadr is more auspicious than 1,000 months, 83 years, is proof of this if proof were needed. I think this is the end of the 7th point, and I'd like to hear, and since about these paragraphs from Mustafa Abi first and then Colin Abi, inshallah. We have 10 minutes, inshallah. Go ahead, Mustafa Abi.
Yeah, I mean, it's a continuation, but I think this second part of this section is more about the human state that's again in that receiving form or receiving entity to those trade, right? It is being in that, because there is the trade aspect, of course, but being ready for that trade is also another aspect, which I think is more emphasized in this second part. And that the name of As-Samad is mentioned, right? The one whom all beings need, but who is himself above all needs. So there are, I think in Ramadan, it's interesting that we can be a mirror to that name of As-Samad in two ways, right? One is as we understand all our need, that we need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? We need God for everything that we do. We need Him for all our actions, all our needs are through Him, right? That is one way we are understanding Him. The other way that we are kind of understanding the name of As-Samad is having no needs, right? So somewhat moving above that human desires, right? Moving above those lower animal self, we are kind of approaching that state where we can be a mirror to the name of As-Samad in a way that we don't necessarily listen to the needs of our animal sides. So resembling or having that closeness or having that reflection of that name of As-Samad in that second way, that, not in the way of the opposites, but in the way of a very small sample of that not needing anything, in a sense, and that we are again that hal, that state that human is in the Ramadan while fasting. I think kind of reflects that way too. So that, and then we see this even in our worldly life when we are fasting. We can actually focus, or we don't necessarily need to worry about the lunch or stuff like that, so we can actually do other things a bit more efficiently. But for the actual need, the actual wisdom is for our attention or for our focus for the hereafter, or that trade for the hereafter, again, so that we would have more time and focus, but also that understanding of Allah's name of As-Samad in this, and at the end of the day, being ready to receive, or being ready to engage in that trade. I think that again, that state of holiness, that state of being free of animal desires, I think it helps us be in that state.
Great, thanks so much, Mustafa. Yeah, that's good. We have a couple more slides, but Colin Abi, it's here. Before we finish this, inshallah, I'd like to hear your reflection as well.
I know Mustafa put it perfectly. You know, the mirror, being the mirror, you know, Aine Samadaniyat, I think is the maybe one of the translations, but all of the names of As-Samad, all of his names. I think in another slide, it tells about like approaching, is it like in a spirit-like state? Can you go on just once? No, the next one, maybe the next one. An angelic state.
Angelic state, the
So
last
it's like
one.
a spirit-like body. I can't remember anyway. What my point is that our preoccupation. There we go. One approaches the state of the hereafter. This is wonderful because our preoccupation with al hayatud dunya, which doesn't mean worldly life, it means the lowest kind of life and the closest kind of life. So the lowest kind of life, obviously, is a life which is lived in a manay ismi state. And the nearest kind of life is, well, we have no option but to be close to the things that we're close to. But we shouldn't think that they are everything and that this world is the only world. So in Ramadan, if we're fasting, in a sense, we approach Akhirah, because if you have less preoccupation towards al-hayat dunya, then you're going to have more preoccupation with al-hayat al-akhirah, which is the other way of living, you know, the real, authentic way of living. So I think this is really important because we're not eating, we're not drinking, you know, we're abstaining from other activities that we normally carry out every day, 24/7, you know, every day throughout the year. So in a sense, we are mirroring not just Samadaniya, but also Quddusiya. You know, Allah is Quddus, as we said before. He is not tainted or sullied or marked by any lack or any deficiency or any absences. So it's really important that we can actually have the opportunity to mirror those names in this particular way at this particular intensity, you know, culminating, as he says, in Laylatul Qadr.
Great.
Oh.
Thank you so much, Colin. Is there any? I was going to check if there is in the chat box. In any brothers, anybody would like to say anything, add to the what has been said, and this is really great. Inshallah, we have 3 minutes. Otherwise, we are gonna make dua. Inshallah, close today's gathering. If there is no final remarks or questions, and I will invite Jasmine Abi to make dua, inshallah, and then we'll stop here. And then thank you so much, Colin Abi. Thank you so much, Mustafa Abi. And
Salam
I think,
alaikum. I have to go now.
wa
Thank
alaikum
you.
salam. We'll see you, inshallah. Jasmine Abi, would you mind just
Yes,
making dua?
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم فهمنا أسرار القرآن ووفقنا لخدمته في كل آن وزمان. O Allah, grant us understanding of the mysteries of the Quran and success in the service of it at every instant, at all times. And inshallah, it's an advice from Sayyid Nursi radiallahu anh, to make the dua. اللهم اجعل ليلة قدرنا في هذا رمضان خيرا من 1000 شهر لنا ولطلبة رسائل النور ولجميع المؤمنين. Oh Allah, make for us this Ramadan better than 1,000 months, inshallah, with the mystery of the Laylatul Qadr. Inshallah, may Allah make us strive for this purpose, inshallah. Make our Ramadan, inshallah, better than 1,000 months. آمين وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.